This week, we have a technical segment, the T-Lora Pager from Lilygo. I'll tell you all about the hardware platform and how to get firmware on the device and the various firmware options that are available for it. Then the security news. Your safe is not safe. Cisco ASA devices are under attack. VMScape, HybridPetya and UEFI attacks in the wild. Everything is a Linux terminal. Hackers turns 30. Hosting websites on disposable vapes, NPM worms, and token stealing. Attackers make mistakes too, and AI podcasts. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly.
Security Weekly and Cyber Risk TV are headed back to one of the biggest identity security events of the year, Octane 2025, put on by Okta. Live September 24th through the 26th, the vibrant city of Las Vegas, Octane 2025 brings together the best minds in identity, security, and technology innovation. And this year, we're turning up the volume. Security Weekly will be on site in full force with Mandy Logan and Adrian Sanabria leading the charge. Get ready for live-streamed executive interviews, exclusive on-site editorial coverage from SC Media, and brand new this year, a live-streamed episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. It's your chance to engage with identity leaders, dive into the future of AI security, and hang out with your favorite Security Weekly hosts. And here's the best part. Security Weekly listeners get an exclusive discount. Just head to securityweekly.com/Octane to register and use the promo code OKTNSCMA25 to get your conference pass for $200. Ransomware, supply chain attacks, 0 days. Cyber threats don't wait, and neither should your defenses. With ThreatLocker, you're not just reacting to threats, you're stopping them before they start. ThreatLocker's zero-trust endpoint protection locks down your environment with pinpoint control over what's allowed to run and what's not. No guesswork, no blind spots, just proactive, built-for-now security that keeps your business moving. Want to see how a true default deny strategy works? Head over to securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker and take the first step towards shutting the door on threats before they even knock. Coming to you from the Hacker Syndicate Studios, this is Paul's Security Weekly. It's episode number 892, being recorded on Wednesday, September 17th. It is the 17th, 2025. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, joined remotely by everyone this morning, which is kind of weird. It's all my fault. Mr. Josh Marpet is here with us. Josh, welcome.
Hey, interesting doing it at this time of day, but I'm loving it.
I know. I have coffee. There might be a little bourbon in my coffee. Mr. Larry Pesce is here.
Oh, but you said something about bourbon. Sorry. No, I'm kidding. It's coffee. It's 10 a.m. So
it's 10 a.m. Mine is coffee too. I know. Not brave enough. I got things to do too. Mr. Lee Neely is here with us. Lee, welcome.
Good morning. I've got my pumpkin spice latte. Because it's 8 o'clock here.
But you're retired, so you can have bourbon.
Yeah, right?
Well, Captain's Coffee's, Shelly made me this and brought it in, and I said, thank you.
Yeah, as you should. Mr. Sam Bound is here with us. Sam, welcome.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Let's see. Quick announcement before we dive into it. Join us for InfoSec World 2025. Excuse me. It'll be happening October 27th through the 29th in sunny Lake Buena Vista, Florida. I mean, it probably will be sunny, but I'm just not making any promises because it might rain. But it will be held at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort. There'll be workshops running before and after the conference on the 25th through the 26th and the 29th through the 30th. The premier cybersecurity conference is here. Save 25% with the code ISW25-SW at securityweekly.com/ISW2025. I am very excited to talk about this device today. This is kind of interesting. I don't know where I first saw this. It's been out for a little while, and I was like, man, I got to have one of these. I'm going to see. That's not the one. if I go to that one, you can see the device and my Hackers t-shirt, which we'll talk a little bit about today. But this is the T-Lora Pager from Lilygo. And just as soon as I saw it, I was like, I need one. I don't know what it is or what it does or how it differs from all the other ESP32 devices that are on the market. But I'm like, it has antennas, a larger screen, and a larger keyboard than a lot of the other ESP32 based hacking type devices that I have. Although similar to, what is the one they made for LoRa that looks like a BlackBerry? Larry?
The T-Deck.
Do you have that one? Yeah, the T-Deck. Thank you. Yeah, T-Deck is similar in terms of like screen size and keyboard, maybe even a little larger. But this one's cool because the antennas, you can fold them in, and they come pre-installed. So
yeah, it looks
it's
like
really cool.
it looks like the keyboard is a little bit spread out for those of us with fat thumbs, but the screen looks smaller. But I think that's probably okay.
Yeah. So you get into why are we here? What is the use case?
Well,
So
I have a question. A pager I thought was something from like the 1980s that beeped so you could call someone on a landline telephone. In what sense is this equal to a pager?
I think it's just the form factor kind of looks like a pager. Like I had a pager not with a keyboard, but I had a pager that was probably roughly the same size with a screen on it that would display messages and had a couple of buttons, similar to like the one in the movie Hackers, right?
So
The
I
yellow,
had a
classic yellow
I had
pager.
a SkyTel pager that was supposedly satellite based, and it had a keyboard and was two-way, and radio killed the video. I mean, video killed the radio. That's where cell phones killed their business.
Right. So, I mean, other than like the form factor, I think I'm always on the search for small portable hacking devices that have a decent screen and keyboard that I can run firmware on to do hacking stuff and or run Meshtastic for LoRa communications. So I picked up, excuse me, one of these. This one I bought from Amazon at a slightly higher price tag because I wanted to have them before I went to GurCon. I have others on order. And I'll get into some of the variations and add-ons that I don't even have yet, which I'm excited about. So for the US, there's primarily two different models, right? So in a lot of the LoRa gear, they tune the radio. They include radios with different frequencies, 915 megahertz being the most popular for LoRa communications here in the US. So there is a model of the pager that has an SX1262 sub-gigahertz LoRa radio in it. And that's the 915 megahertz model. And that's the model that I have here. This is the model that I tested. Now, as I did more research, I was like I basically used Claude to feed Claude a bunch of information about the pager and ask it questions and do some analysis with it. So I have a little bit of AI slop in here, but the other model comes with the LR1121 radio in it. That is sub gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz LoRa. I have that model on order. These run about $80 direct from Lilygo. You're going to pay taxes, maybe shipping, maybe some tariffs. You know, all that stuff might be included. It depends. Sometimes Lilygo will actually warehouse stuff in the US, but I still think you pay a tariff. Like they probably just adjust the price. Like they're going to pay the tariff, warehouse it in the US. It's going to ship to you faster, but you're still going to pay the tariff. So you can get an NRF module add-on, which I had more information about down below. So you can get. Let me show you all the pictures of it first. So we'll go through the hardware. Let's see. That's that button. And now we can see up close and personal what this device looks like. So it's got a nice screen. I'll give you the stats when I go back to the document, but it's got a nice screen on it. Again, nice keyboard with a jog wheel. And the jog wheel you can also push in as a button. So that's how the user interface works. What I really love about this device, though, is you get a little vibration, a buzz, every time you push a button or interact with it. So it gives you tactile feedback, which I think is great. Like that's just awesome. I love that feature. And you can see here, I'm running the launcher firmware on it. I'll talk about the different firmware options. The launcher firmware allows you to load different firmware from the SD card at boot time, or you can load firmware over the air. You can also configure connect it to a wireless Wi-Fi network, and then connect to a mini web server that runs inside the launcher firmware, and you can do file management on the SD card from the web interface, so you don't have to always pop that SD card out and reload stuff. So launcher is really cool. Launcher supports this particular device, and I got it running, and I love it. And also, so I've booted Meshtastic on it. This is an older version of Meshtastic that doesn't have the fancy user interface. My guess is that developers are probably still working on supporting this display in the new interface, because this display is different from a lot of the other Meshtastic devices. So 2.7.9 is the version of Meshtastic that I got running on it. So it has your three buttons. I believe from left to right, it's power, boot, and reset. I could be wrong though, because it depends on which way the device is flipped. Right? I made that. I'm like, why is it not going into like bootloader mode, like download mode? I'm like, oh, it's backwards, dummy. Like I was looking at the diagram, like with the thing flipped the wrong way. So you have three buttons: power, boot, and reset. You have an SD card reader, USB-C, a nice little like little tassel thing here that you can clip it to your bag or whatever.
Lanyard hook.
Kind of lanyard hook. Thank you. So that's kind of cool. And then on the flip side, on the top of the device, it has GPIO ports.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this is their document. You can see in the Lilygo documentation. I have links that I'll post for everyone. Or if you go to the product page on Lilygo's website, it links to their GitHub. If you got to dig around a little bit in the GitHub, but you can get a full breakout of what all the pins are on your GPIO.
Is that so that NRF shield hooks onto those GPIO pins, and then on the back it hooks into that?
It looks like these are holes to hold down an external adapter.
No, on the back of it, there's that not antenna hole. What is that?
Well, this is that for an external speaker? I think. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
This one right here. Yeah, I think that's like an external mic or
like a 3.5 millimeter or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I'm not actually sure. I didn't look into the audio stuff.
And
it does have audio.
What's the not on that side, but on the back of it? You can just see the side of it. What's that? No.
This one?
No. On the actual back of the device.
Oh, that one right there. I think that's just a mount. That's just mounted on something.
Okay, so because I saw an NRF shield that looked like it linked into that and the GPIO pins.
Yeah, I'll show you pictures of the NRF, which I'm hoping is supported by like Bruce firmware to use for NRF hackery.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, and Bruce firmware is supported. Now, what's also important to note is there is no infrared, and there is no CC 1101 radio inside of it. So when you go into the infrared option exists in Bruce, but there is no infrared transceiver. So there's that. All right. What else about the hardware? So again, underneath the processor is an ESP32S3, 16 megs of flash, 8 megs of RAM. The display is 480 by 222 resolution. It's a 2.33 inch IPS display. It does have a battery in it. You can see all the specs for the battery there. It does have a bunch of sensors. So it does have an NFC radio, which is interesting. So you can do NFC. Bruce supports some NFC and RFID stuff. So you could do whatever the ST25R3916 NFC chip supports. It's got smart sensors that talk about AI motion detection, which is kind of neat. I haven't looked into exactly what one would do with that chip, but it's got some stuff like that on it. And again, audio codecs and audio amplifiers on it as well. The GPIO expander is an XL9555. Again, the GitHub has all the breakouts for the GPIO expander. It is a standard 2.54 millimeter extended I/O interface that you can connect the NRF 24L01 module to, which again I have on order. So these are the different board revisions again that I've gone through. The documentation does list CC1101, and I'm not sure exactly if they make a model for that or if it's some kind of software emulation. I'm not entirely sure on that. Again, with the GPIO pins, conceivably, you could add an IR transceiver or a CC1101 via the GPIO pins on the back. And so, yeah, that's the add-on one that I have is that standard NRF 24L01, which gives you 2.4 gigahertz wireless communications. They say you can use it for 2.4 gigahertz mesh networking. So I guess if you got just a sub gigahertz lower radio model like I have, you could add 2.4 gigahertz lower communications, or with that radio, if it's supported by your firmware, you can do hackery kind of things with that radio. So, let's
hey, Paul, one other thing that I know you don't have there, because I was just looking at, hey, I got to buy one of these because the ADHD thing part of your brain is like, I got to collect all the things. And it also has GPS built in.
Oh, it does. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Was that in the specs? Did I miss it?
Let's put it this way. Looking at Lilygo's website for their products at lilygo.cc, the T-Lora Pager, just the core functionality says that it has the U-Blox GPS module, the MIA M10Q. Which is really convenient, especially when we're starting to talk Meshtastic, because then it can report your location and so forth.
Yes.
Unlike when unlike the TDEX, having to add the GPS on afterwards and modify the configuration to make sure that they're enabled, and then you got to make sure your soldering was done right. And
right.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. So here's what I'm recommending. I'd get the model that has is that flashing around? I'd get the model that has the LR1121 multi-band radio, because I think that's cool. Then make sure you get an SD card. So I'm finding with these ESP32 devices, many have an SD card. And when you read the documentation, they say don't go over 32 gig and keep it to FAT32 or FAT formatted SD cards. So you don't need to go crazy with storage. In fact, the system's not going to support it. In fact, if you have a card that has more than 32 gigs of storage, you have to create a partition that's 32 gigs or less. So you're just going to waste that space anyway. So I think I bought 10, 16 gigabyte. Don't buy cheap knockoff things. Like these are SanDisk. They're like $7 a piece. From Amazon, get a bunch of those.
$7? Right? Oh no!
A whole $7. Buy 10 of them, because once you start collecting these devices, you're going to have more than one, and you'll be like, I need another SD card. So go spend the $70, buy 10 of the SanDisk, or Lexor, like a name brand micro SD card. I should specify. Larry's got a whole drawer
full of micro SD cards.
So. I was going to say the reason I bought these, actually, I use these for my my controller for my Christmas display, and it doesn't like cards over 32 gigs. So I was, and they're disappearing. That's why I bought a 3-pack here. It's not that it fails; it just well, there's oddities when it doesn't like the card.
Yeah.
And so.
Oh yeah.
Well, Lee, if you
to our debugging.
If you need some 16s, I got you covered. I probably have about 100 of them in that drawer over there.
I'll keep stock up on them. Stock up on them. Get a good micro SD card reader too. I think I have one from Anker. It's like USB-C on one side, USB-A on the other side, and it does an SD and micro SD on it. I use that for my camera. I use that for all my devices. It's a really fast reader-writer device.
Yeah,
so make sure you get a quality.
They are super good, Paul. I just went and bought one of those, and I'm trying to find it right here on my desk because it should be right here. God damn it! But it's not. It's probably in my bag somewhere. But yeah,
what was the name of that again?
It's from Anker.
Josh, I can.
I'll put the link. Yeah, we have the link.
I was going to grab the link and put it in. Yeah, perfect.
Yep. Yeah, Josh. If you don't have the link,
what I do is,
Josh, do you have the link?
I don't.
Okay, I'll get it.
Yeah, we'll get that link for you. So then I copy a bunch of stuff to the SD card. I mean, it's almost like another tech segment in and of itself. But building upon, I think I shared with you guys on the call, my script for R-syncing files that goes to GitHub. It gets a bunch of the infrared sub-gigahertz files, and then it R-syncs it to an SD card. So I recently vibe coded my way that into a script. And so now that script will automatically sync your GitHub repositories and rsync all the files onto your SD card. And what these are largely the files that Bruce has in its repo that says should be on the SD card when you're running the Bruce firmware. But there's also other repositories. Pretty much you can control like every infrared-based device on the planet with the files that I load on this SD card. It's a massive library of infrared files that are in the flipper format. So you can use this SD card in your flippers. You can also use it with Bruce firmware because Bruce firmware will read flipper defined, I think both sub-gigahertz and infrared files. So that you can control a ton of devices. So now I'm just, basically preloading all my SD cards the same way. I'll release that script at some point. So then once you have all those files and you transfer from your SD card, which takes a really long time because there's a lot of files, you load up your SD card, then you're going to build and acquire and build some firmware, and you're going to build that with Platform IO. Now, there's a lot of different ways to flash this device. However, once you have the launcher firmware on there, you can use the launcher web flasher to flash launcher on there. Or if I put it in here, you can, I don't think I put it in there. I do have ESP tool commands that work to pop the firmware on there. You got to play around with the options. I have some of those documented. So you can just go get the firmware, use ESP tool, pop the device on there. You're going to want to hold your boot button down, power on the device, tap your reset button, and then release your boot button.
Naked while dancing widdershins around a campfire comprised of birch logs only.
It's a total dance, but that puts it in what they call download mode or bootloader mode. It basically shows up as a serial TTY device that is in a mode where it can accept new firmware, and you can write to the flash on the device.
So Paul, we need a concept of the swear volume that happened while you were figuring out this extraordinarily complex sequence of events. Was it one?
It is one of the more challenging things working on these devices. Doing the dance to get it in the mode, because also if it's battery powered, this device, I'm not sure how it gets around it, but I know like the T-Embed CC1101s have a battery in it.
Yeah,
and sometimes I have to disconnect the battery to be able to do a proper power on. And you also, the reset button is inside the case, so you have to remove the bottom of the case and push it. And push the button, which is it's like buried way in the corner. So if you have the tweezers, one video I watched, the tweezers that kind of have almost like a 45-degree bend.
You
get one of those, and that can push the button. You squeeze them together, and that pushes the button.
Larry, Paul, you two need to come up with the index of, is it 4 fucks per minute, 7 fucks per minute? How complex is this device to set up and configure?
It's the FPM scale.
Yes, exactly.
A lot of the FPM getting them into download mode is a pain in the butt.
Yeah. So maybe it's going to take some download mode during your in-class lab, Larry.
Yes.
I mean, the nice part is once it is in download mode, you have full access to the flash. So if you mess something up, you can just do it again. Like it's super hard to brick these devices. Like I've accidentally put the wrong firmware on them. And I'm like, oops, that was the wrong firmware. And then the device doesn't boot. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. Just put it back into bootloader mode, go back in and flash the right firmware, and everything's great. So,
yep.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to say they're unbrickable, but you have, the download mode gives you access to the full SPI flash. So like if you mess up your bootloader or you put it at the wrong offset, it's fine. Just do it again. It's fine.
And upload mode is typically known as DFU.
DFU, right?
DFU, device firmware update mode.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it stands for.
Firmware.
Yeah, there's lots of different names for it. Yep. Yeah, they call it
FPM rate goes up when you put the wrong firmware on. Especially if you've just pressed it.
FPM rate with a new term. I love this.
FPM rate goes up when you want to update your DFU bootloader. And you mess that up.
In a pig's eye,
yeah. So once you do that, I'll zoom in even more. So I collected some commands. So I've got some experience with Platform IO. I do highly recommend, if you're going to get into ESP32 devices, that you learn Platform IO. Most of the firmware, in fact, I think all of the firmware that I work with for ESP32, the developers are using Platform IO as the build system, which I super love. So here's what I do. I create a Python virtual environment. I install Platform IO into that virtual environment once I git cloned the repo down on my system. Then this command is very important, and I found that some documentation does not include this command, which is very important. That's PIO, so that's a command line for Platform IO, PKG install, right? And what that's going to do is it's going to go into your Platform IO configuration files, determine what all the dependencies are, and install all of those dependencies in your build environment, right? So you've got dependencies from Python to get Platform IO installed. Then you've got your basically Arduino, all of those different libraries that are defined in the build environment. That gets installed with this command. Then, really, regardless of which build system that you're using, which firmware that you're using, whether it's Bruce, I did some stuff with the ESP32 Bus Pirate, I've done Meshtastic, I've done Bruce. I kind of like just compiling it on my own. It not only gets you the latest version, which quite frankly could be buggy, and it's usually listed as their beta versions, but it allows me to build for my environment and get my local firmware file that I can then pop on my device or pop on my SD card to load with Launcher. So you can do PIO run, you can clean, so it cleans your build environment. If you want to see which targets, so in Platform IO, right, you'll create firmware, and then you're like, this firmware, I support the T-Embed, I support the T-Lora Pager, I support the cheap yellow display, whatever the ESP32 environment is. What you do in your Platform IO.ini file is you define that environment, and you say, hey, for this target, like in this case, the T-Lora Pager, this environment, T-Lora Pager, the processor is an ESP32 S3. The build flags are this. The flash layout is this. And you define specifics for that. So you go write the code once. Then when you go build it, you can build it for all the different targets. So if you look at the popular firmwares like Bruce, Meshtastic, in their Platform IO, they're building for all these different targets. So when you grep for ENV in your Platform IO.ini file, it's going to list all the available targets that you can build for. So for Bruce, for example, I was just building for the Lilygo T-Embed CC1101. So I told it to, my environment was called that because that's what it's defined as in the file. For the ESP32 Bus Pirate, they have an environment for S3 Dev Kit, which is one of the ones I was building for. Some of them will define like a target, which is like an action that you can take. So in this case, T-Upload will actually, like, you build the firmware and then you say upload and it'll actually flash the device. And so it's a great way to do development because you're writing code, you build the project, and then right from Platform IO, you can pop it on your device that's connected to your system and run it, which is awesome. So you can build all this firmware to get the files that you need, then copy those to the SD card. And also note some firmware will have special builds for Launcher. I think it's Bruce has a special build that's for Launcher. Launcher uses like a different file system format, and there's some nuances there. So some firmware distributions basically will have a special firmware build for Launcher. So I copied the Meshtastic and Bruce files from my T-Lora Pager after I built them, copy those to the SD card. Now what's nice is I can boot Launcher on my device. I can go to the SD card option and I can say boot Meshtastic, or I can say boot the Bruce firmware. So also, just, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but you can, once you configure the Launcher to connect to your Wi-Fi network, it puts a config file on your SD card. I forget what it's called. It might just be like launcher.conf or something like that. And in there, you define what your username and password is to log into the web interface in the Launcher firmware. And by default, it's admin and Launcher, so you should probably change those. Just saying. And then you can define a bunch of Wi-Fi networks that it'll try and connect to. So like I've got a Wi-Fi network at home. I've got one here in the office. So I preload my launcher config files. They'll connect to either one. So if I spin them up, I go to the Wi-Fi option. It'll connect, and you can define those in the config file. Yeah, and so I hope that Meshtastic on this T-Lora Pager is going to get the new fancy UI that we've talked about on the show before. But yeah, that's the rundown of my experiences with the T-Lora Pager. I will say I will be at GurCon October 2nd and 3rd, and I will have I won't have T-Lora Pagers to give away, but I will bring mine so you can check it out. But I do have the T-Dongle S3s that we can play around with the USB Army Knife project. I will have some T-Embeds. I will have some T-Embed CC1101s. I think I have 3 Bus Pirates 5s to give away. And I will be giving away the T-Embeds CC1101s, and I have some M5 stack card pewters as well.
And some CYDs?
And some CYDs, yeah. Once I get off my butt, I'm going to create an SD card for all 10 CYDs that I bought from Larry, and I'm going to 3D print cases for all of them. And then I don't know if I'm going to give away or sell them or what. I'm going to do something with them, but yeah.
So when are you going to write a book on ESP32 hacking?
Yeah,
seriously, dude.
I don't know that much. Yeah,
you've been having so much fun with it. Hey, Larry too. You guys, if you guys had ever written a book together, you'd be all set to do it again.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd argue that it's probably a lot less ESP32 hacking as it is more using ESP32 platforms for hacking
use
cases or use cases or something like.
Well, okay. So let me ask you a question. In all seriousness, you guys really should. And you should write out an outline. At the very least, take half a day, and the two of you should write an outline of it. Because I bet you'd all of a sudden start coming up like it'd start just popping, and you'd be like, "Holy crap, we really could do this."
Yep. Paul, if we do this, we got to self-publish. I've got someone that I kind of asked about how they did that.
I mean, either that or we just create a training class. That's kind of my thinking and everything that I've been looking at. I'm like, I think I have enough now where I could probably do a pretty cool training class.
Do a training class with your own book.
Yeah, yeah. You can build on each other.
Yep. And the training class comes with all the gear. Wait. Oh.
Yeah. Hello.
That way you have standardized gear that everybody shows up with rather than 14 different varieties of 70 different platforms.
Yep. And I tell you what, though, I think what really unlocks the ESP32 platform is when you start doing some development on your own.
Agreed.
Right. I mean, it's one thing to use other people's firmware, right? But it's another thing to be able to customize that firmware. And it's another thing to just develop all your own firmware for special projects. And coding it is super fun. C++, there's a lot of documentation on how to do it. I had a lot of fun with the project from ShmooCon, Larry, the Bluetooth tracker. I mean, that's on GitHub. You can find it, and you can load that firmware on your cheap yellow displays, and it sort of works, right? But it was fun to develop.
Sort of works.
Yep. And I just even thinking about some of that, like developing some of that stuff on your own, like you go to Hackaday and find a ton of stuff. Like an article I opened yesterday that may have been a day or two old was starting to use an ESP32 with an e-ink display to create your own little status display of stuff. So like that, you turn it into a Wi-Fi Rogue AP monitor and a little display on your desk when new APs show up. Like this could be a thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of great use. I mean, in ESP32 Home has a lot of code examples too. A lot of people code ESP32 devices for was it HomeKit? Is it Home?
Yeah, I think it's HomeKit.
Right? HomeKit. Yeah. So you're basically your own home automation system based on small IoT devices that are largely based on ESP32. It's a lot of fun. It's good stuff. And even just playing with all the other firmware and customizing it is fun too. I love the platform and all the different devices. Just make it fun. The different options. The card pewter is still awesome as well. So cool stuff. I will put some links in the show notes. There's basically there's 3 links that are super important. So there's the product page. I just want to show those briefly before we, because the GitHub ones are a little buried. But this is how to like start it up on IDE, your Arduino IDE, and get going with development. How to put it in DFU mode, if you will. And then there's a full documentation on the hardware. What I did was I gave these links to Claude and then just started asking Claude questions. So there's the full layout. So from left to right, it's the reset button, the boot button, the power button, the SD card socket, and then the USB-C. I almost need to like label my devices to remember to like keep it straight. I actually kind of wish they would put labels on the outside of the case. That would be nice.
Yep. Or even on the button himself with like a little P or an R.
Yeah, I mean, eventually, what happens is people create their own 3D printed custom cases.
I was just gonna say you should 3D print some.
Yeah, because I also sometimes like Lilygo will give you the STL files. I believe for the T-Embed platform, they published the STL files, and other people have taken them and made variations of it, which is nice. And this is the extension interface, so this is fully documented what each of the GPIO pins do. So,
hey, Paul,
full documentation is there, which is awesome.
In the notes that you're sharing, did you happen to include the links to the add-on modules that you were looking at? And did they come from Lilygo or did they come from elsewhere?
Yeah, so it all came from Lilygo.
Okay.
I mean, it's basically the same link, and then you just get this pull down here. So you can get them all in the different frequencies. You can get the one with the LR 1121, and then this one is the shield only. So if I hit that, that's the shield. So that plugs into your GPIO interface and gives you an external antenna connection to do 2.4 gigahertz stuff. And there's also, and so that's what it looks like when it's on the device.
Oh, that's what that was. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Isn't that cool? So I've got one of those on order as well. That one's not that expensive. How much is that? It's $5.82.
That's nothing
for the add-on. So
better get CFO approval for that one.
I know. I bought two of them. I bought two of the antennas. So
yeah.
One for each of my. Actually, I think I have 3 of the pagers now. But in any case,
and you were talking about the T-Embeds the other day with me, and they have a couple of different versions of those.
Yeah, there's a new one. Now you're gonna.
Is it the SI 4732?
No, it's the T-Embed CC1101 Plus. And now I don't remember what is the plus add.
It's a good question.
I bought one because I read
it's
what it added and I wanted it.
The NRF24L01 module.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the.
I may be adding a bunch. I may be adding a bunch of stuff to my cart. So.
Yeah. So this is the new one. So it's a 1101. Plus the NRF 24L01 is included in this one. Yeah, 2.4 gigahertz transceiver.
Nice.
And that just gives you like basically raw 2.4 gigahertz capabilities, Larry, right? Like you can send transceiver, right? You can send and receive in the 2.4 gigahertz frequency whatever you want, right? Sky's the limit. As opposed to the Wi-Fi module on the ESP32 is a Wi-Fi radio. Although there was some research that they unlocked that radio as well. I cover that in the show. All right, we're slightly over time for this technical segment because we could go on forever talking about cool hardware hacking toys. But go get yourself a T-Lora Pager if it meets your requirements. We spelled them out in this segment. It is a fun device to have. And if you like to tinker with LoRa or different firmwares for ESP32, it should definitely be on your list. Probably as you're listening to this, there's many people adding it to their cart. We should have had some kind of referral link for that. I feel like a lot of people are going to buy it once they hear our breakdown of it. So with that, we will take a short break and come back with the security news. Stay tuned. And we're back with the security news. Very excited to chat about the stories today. Also, talk about some movie stuff. There's exciting news and there's sad news.
I'll start with the sad news. I was listening to the news yesterday, and Robert Redford passed away at 89. Was he 89 yesterday? Yeah. They were talking about some of his ties to Rhode Island, and it was an interesting story. I forget which movie he did back in the day that they filmed at the Breakers Mansion in Newport, Rhode Island. Was it the Breakers? It was one of the mansions in Newport they filmed, and Robert Redford came back like, I don't know, 20 or 30 years later, was in Rhode Island for something, went to the mansion, knocked on the door, and was like, "Hey, can I get just a tour, like a quick tour of the first floor?" And the younger person who answered the door didn't recognize him.
Oh, geez.
And was like, "I'm sorry, sir, we're closed." And Robert Redford, being Robert Redford, was like, "All right, it's fine. Like, I came, you said you were closed," and turns around, walks away, gets in his car, and someone else that worked there who did recognize him tried to flag him down, but he had already drove away. And they're like, it kind of spoke to his character as a person. Like, he didn't throw his weight around. He was like, "You know who I am?" Like, he didn't do anything. He was just like,
"Do you know who I am?
I'm a person. I came here and you were polite and told me you were closed. So, okay, I'll move on."
Yep.
So,
yep.
It's interesting though, all the movie clips that they show honoring Robert Redford. I also didn't know he was the founder of the Sundance Film Festival.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yep.
I thought that was an interesting fact. But none of the movie clips they show are from the movie Sneakers.
Right.
I'm like, you guys not remembering he was in this iconic classic film with a lot of
he was
other actors who are very famous.
Yeah, he was arguably in a whole bunch of other, seminal films with a whole bunch of other more famous actors, like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah. Sure.
Sundance. It's almost like there's something connecting those, like Josh taking a drink of his cup of coffee. Like, yeah, there might be something that connects the two. Oh, hey, thanks, man.
No problem. Anytime.
I feel left out. Where's my red Schmookon mug? I never got one of those.
Oh, hey, hold on a second. No,
yeah, right. I'm holding up. So Sneakers. Larry. I mean, we talk about the classic hacker movies, and the top three that we usually discuss are War Games, Sneakers, and Hackers. Right?
Yeah.
I feel like the rest are kind of like it's like the top three are the top three, and the rest are the rest, and not take away from them. But I think it depends on how you frame it. If we talk about the most influential hacker films, those would be the top three. Because when you talk to people and you're like, what movie influenced you? Like, why did you get into security? Right? It's usually one of those top three. They're like, oh, I watched one of those movies. Yep. And it really inspired me to want to be in this field.
And even if it wasn't an inspiration, it was like, this was really cool, and this validates why I'm doing what I do, and some of those types of things, or even why I'm in the computer industry to begin with.
Right.
So
now, I don't want to take away from foreign films to talk about hacking. There was a German film, I believe the name is Who Am I? Outstanding hacker movie. 23 was a French film, I believe. It's also really good. So there's a couple of ones that like I remember now, because we were talking about this at work, that because we were making the social media post about Hackers that I made, like why Hackers is my favorite hacker movie. And I said, there's a couple of movies when I've asked the hundreds of people on this podcast, what's your favorite hacker movie? And there's like a couple of people that have talked about some of those foreign films like Who Am I? So I think it is Who Am I? We'll pull together a larger list maybe for a future segment, because you should go watch that German film. It's friggin' awesome. But Hackers, this past Monday was the 30th anniversary. And I say it to a lot of people, I'm like, man, I'm old. 30th anniversary of the movie Hackers. And one of the things that always gets me about Hackers are the subtle nuances in that film. The subtle references in that film are one of the reasons why it's my favorite. I mean, one of the more esoteric ones is the author Ginsburg. That book is basically like about raging against the machine, right? It's about going against social norms, which is, part of the hacking culture. So many of the references, because they had great advisors to that film about hacking culture. And the one thing that I think takes away from it for a lot of people
is the scenes when they're hacking are obviously very Hollywood, very stylized, not grounded in reality. They're just very, very entertaining. And I have a link that I posted on some of my socials that links to, I think it's from Slash Film. There's an interview with the cast and crew of Hackers. And they talked to Mark Abeen, who was one of the technical, what do you call that? Like influencers of film. And they talk about the scenes of hacking. And many of the advisors who were actual hackers to the producers and directors told them, like, hey, this is like how it would look in the real world. And the directors and writers were like, no, we want something that's very stylized. The rest of the movie is referencing like real hacker culture in an amazing way. But those scenes of hacking is what that's, if Jeff were here, we'd be talking like, the scenes are just silly. I think it'd be interesting, similar to how fans have created versions of the Phantom Menace without Jar Jar Binks. It would be interesting for someone to cut a version of Hackers that has actual real hacking in the scenes instead of the Hollywood superflouse scenes, right? So I started down this path, and I was like, one of the first hacking scenes is when they're hacking into the TV station. And so I went to my LLMs and I was like, hey, give me all like references to actual cyber attacks that have attacked a TV station. There's actually several examples. So I'm like, it'd be a pretty cool exercise.
Never forget 11/22, 1987.
Yep. 1507 computer system, something like that.
Oh, yeah. 11/22, 87 was the infamous Max Headroom stuff in Chicago.
That was on the list. Yeah.
All right, guys, don't look this up. When was War Games released?
It was earlier.
1983.
89.
Almost 83.
So I was going to say 85.
Yeah, if you're feeling old before, and I'm thinking,
yeah, well,
that was
interesting. But
how long? What was War Games used for in politics?
Yeah, they had conversations in the White House with Reagan about War Games.
Yep, and
this could happen.
And Kevin Mitnick, because they said he could whistle the missile launch codes,
and they also played 4 minutes and some odd seconds of War Games to Congress to get them to pass the CFAA.
Oh, interesting.
That's cool. Yeah. The interesting thing about War Games to me is it kind of shows, I mean, it's 1980s, but it shows that at that time what OSET research was like, as he's looking up, trying to find stuff about Vulcan to get a backdoor into his computer. I mean,
Joshua.
And war dialing.
Right.
People weren't aware of war dialing until then.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit Hollywood, but it makes the point about what that stuff is.
It's interesting. One thing that I think is interesting about the top 3 films that we talk about is that War Games was the lone hacker, like literally in his parents' basement or in his bedroom, right? Hacking into stuff. Sneakers was about professional hackers, a group of professional hackers who were getting paid to do it. Hackers was one of the first hacker movies that was just about the hacker culture, a bunch of people with diverse backgrounds that just got together and did hacking. And it presented a very different, aspect of hacking than War Games or Sneakers. So that's why that's one of the reasons why I like it.
So people pay you to break into their places? Yeah.
Well, and in Hackers, it was Joey hacking the Gibson because he wanted basically street cred.
Yep.
It was for fun.
For the lulz.
Yeah.
Right. That was the scene back then. You did it for the street credit. You did it for the lulz. You did it for the learning. You did it for the experimentation.
Someone also in hacking the Gibson, right? And one of the things I posted someone posted in a comment on my LinkedIn post that there is a hacking Gibson simulator. It's a mainframe hacking simulator, and it's called Gibson. So you can literally download the simulator and hack the Gibson
and find the garbage file.
I'm not sure. I haven't downloaded it yet, but I thought that was pretty. I did not.
We don't need to find it, Paul. It's behind behind you on the wall right there.
That's right. Yeah. There's a whole Hackers Curator is a whole YouTube channel and website dedicated to honoring all things about the movie Hackers. Their website, you can browse their website and get descriptions of every like costume and set prop that's in the movie. It's just it's and the guy that runs that podcast made his own Johnny Lee Miller character, Zero Cool, the motorcycle vest jacket that he wears with the gray on the shoulders. He actually recreated that from scratch. Like got different pieces and painted the whole thing to recreate the so there's a lot of passion behind Hackers. It's fun stuff. Alrighty. Where do we want to go first in the security news? We talk about Cisco ASA devices, since that's what's up on my screen.
I think it's a good one, especially given that this is very much some of the themes that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks with sort of end of life devices or soon to be end of life devices, and the rise in scanning for these types of devices and the rise of IoT type botnets.
Yeah, Grey Noise did a great job of pointing this out. They're like, look, there's a huge spike in August of, I think it was like 30,000 nodes in a botnet that were all in conjunction scanning for Cisco ASA devices. So what I did was I went back to the Grey Noise data and I said, well, like, show me the next month, show me September. And there was another spike in September. And that screenshot is in my blog post. My story number 12 is the article that I wrote about it. And I'm like, so I'm curious, like, to keep an eye on this. Like, is there a spike every month of attackers scanning it? Because we saw one in August. I saw another one in September. And thanks to Grey Noise for making this data available. Super useful. Shout out to my friend Corey that works at Grey Noise and all the fine folks there. So I was like, well, this is interesting. Like, attackers are continuing to scan for ASA devices. The other interesting thing is there's a lot of exploits and vulnerabilities historically for ASA devices. There's just a plethora. I go through the whole list in my article, basically focusing on the high severity and some of the exploit tools that exist. There's an exploit tool that someone at Rapid7 wrote an exploit tool that allows you to upload your own, what do they call those, ADSM packages into the ASA. So there's a tool to do that written in Python. And then I was like, well, so how many devices, Cisco ASAs, are there exposed to the internet? A little bit of research. I keyed it on the login string. What is that? Login string in the URL, which also ends up in the HTML body on Cisco ASA devices. And that's the plus CSCOE + string is indicative that it is an ASA device. So if you use that string and you plug that into Shodan, so there's my Shodan query, you see there's 113,000, just north of 113,000 Cisco ASA devices on the public internet today.
I got four of them in my basement.
Right? Maybe connected, maybe not.
No, they're not connected. I think I shot two of them.
So I have an official statement from Cisco that they have begun discontinuing sales and support for many ASA product lines, with final orders for several models and subscriptions scheduled to cease in 2023 and 2024. I also read things that said, like, basically, I believe from what I read, that all Cisco ASA devices will be end of support, end of life by 2026, with Cisco making statements that it will be superseded by FTD or Firepower Threat Defense Platform.
So just to be clear, on eBay, there's over 2,500 results for Cisco ASA.
Mm-hmm.
So they may end of life it and they may stop selling it, but this concept that now it's not my problem anymore is absolute and utter crap.
Yeah, because I bet you it would still serve perfectly well as a firewall.
Yeah,
today, right? Like,
but don't expose that login to the internet, for crying out loud.
I know. Well, but if it's a SSL VPN device, Lee, you got to expose that to the internet, right?
Yeah, you got to do that. But doggone it,
some of these things, Some of these things.
Some of them also
have
have SSH exposed to the internet as well. So this
you
is
don't
the perfect
need to expose
storm.
the SSH to the internet if you're just exposing the VPN login.
Exactly.
Let's not make it any easier than it has to be. Right.
But this is this is a perfect storm. Like, let's take all these things individually. You got attackers that we can prove are scanning for it. You got tons of exploits and toolkits out there for ASA devices, and you've got Cisco that's going to end of lifing this line, which means at some point there's not going to be any more patches, and for some models there are no more patches.
Oh, wait a minute!
Produced for them.
Wait a minute! I didn't realize this, but some of the ASAs actually are firepower, which is what I thought they had a hard stop. Like it was an ASA and then it was a firepower. I didn't realize that they had some of the ASAs.
There's overlap. Yeah, because some of the vulnerabilities they say this vulnerability affects ASA/FTD.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. And I'm like, look, right now you can get an ASA 5525 with firepower for $95. That's
interesting on eBay.
That's not opening bid?
No, that's for sale now. $5 or best offer.
Yeah.
These are super capable devices, though.
Oh,
so you run that firewall now, you'd be totally fine. Like, it's not gonna break in a sweat on a gig. If you have a gig up and down on your internet, I bet you that $95 ASA would be like, yeah, fine. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe is that 100 meg or is that a gig? It's got to be a gig.
I don't know. I'm just like, some of these are ridiculously cheap, and they're things that 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, and run away, like holding it, like, oh, I've got the firewall. I'll never need another one. Good Lord. And the licenses add like $50 to $100. So yeah, a 5520 with full plus license for security appliance, $50. With the VPN plus license. Like, do you know how many small businesses are going to? Yes, we got it. We made a deal. They may not get security updates, but they're going to be running for the next 10 years.
There's a lot I can tell by looking through the Shodan results. Not necessarily small businesses, Josh.
This is also true.
So you got branch offices, you got whatever it is, but there's a lot of large enterprises still running. I mean, the ASA platform has been around forever, and these aren't devices that you just rip and replace willy-nilly.
Do you remember when the 5505 was like the nice thing to have in your satellite offices? $34.
Oh my God. Yeah. So a lot of the recommendations are monitor your firmware for changes, right? And, gets into some of our product capabilities. I don't want to give a product pitch on the show, but the end of the article kind of talks about how we were able to do firmware integrity support for ASA. So if your firmware is tampered with, you can detect that as well as the vulnerabilities, which is increasingly important on this platform because of all the things that we mentioned. So, Jesus. Yeah.
And let's be honest, Cisco is as good as their technology was and as weird as their hardware was. I still remember opening up some old switches and firewalls and finding like old Pentium boards inside. Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. That still happens today. I mean, if you look at the major branded enterprise gear, now it's a custom build. There are customizations that are made, but in essence, many of them are regular Intel hardware.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an Intel motherboard, an Intel processor.
Well, it's now, and also like in the Soho space, it's all just a plain old MIPS processor board now, right? A lot of them are that, and because there's nothing wrong with them. They don't need headers and a blower. They just need a basic CPU to get the job done.
Yeah. I mean, MIPS is starting to be replaced by ARM, but certainly there's a lot of older devices still running MIPS. 100%.
I'm not. It's nothing. I'm not saying anything negative on MIPS or ARM or Intel. It's like it's got the CPU it needs to get the job done.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how many ops per second that old Pentium 2 could do. It was not a slouch. It just by today's standards, it's not very good. But for what you're doing with this, what the hell? It works.
Yeah, but it's funny. Years ago on the show, Larry and I built firewalls out of PCs. How long did those run? Those ran forever.
Oh yeah, like
they just worked, right?
Yeah, like I have one that if it hadn't had a problem was still running. Like that was 5 years ago, 4 years ago, easy.
Yeah,
and it would still be running to capacity for what I need it for to this day if something dumb hadn't happened.
But I'm still at home. I'm using the Kotom fanless mini PC as my firewall.
Yeah. That was the one we built.
I got 900 up and down on that firewall, and it never breaks a sweat, which is why I haven't. I mean, now I'm going to replace it with the Ubiquity Cloud, whatever cloud gateway that I bought. But
think of taking the CPU out of the latest hotshot computer you were running and running it without a fan.
Hell no.
Yeah, these are largely the mini PCs are Celeron. Yeah. In different lines that are lower power, throwing off a lot less heat than your gaming PC.
I mean, I will admit this thing runs without a fan, but
yeah,
it also gets warm sometimes too.
Well, it's funny. We covered a story. All of a sudden, people are running web servers on all kinds of weird stuff. I don't know what this trend is. I think it's exciting. I think it's hacking in its truest sense. I think it was last week. Someone had their Pixel 5 and they were serving a website off of it. This week, Larry and I both found the story where the person's running a web server off of a disposable vape. So they reverse engineered the disposable vape and was like, oh, this chip actually can run a web server.
Yep.
And did something with a TCP IP over serial to get the chip to serve.
Slip.
Slip, yeah. And you know what's fun? What's hilarious is the post where he explains it. There's a version of it that's being served from the disposable vape web server.
Yep. So yeah, he runs the big one, like the description on GitHub, but in the description of the code and all that stuff, there's a link to the one that actually runs
on the disposable vape.
On the vape. And when I got to that story, it was returning a 500 error because it had been hammered so hard.
Yeah.
Yep. So enter a new round of hammering right after this goes live. Right?
Years ago, there was a contest where people were, what was the smallest computer you could build that would run a web server? It kind of died with like the Pi and stuff because things are so small. I'm glad it's kind of fun to see that come back. I mean,
yeah, he says these vapes use a Puya branded ARM Cortex M0 Plus chip with 24 kilobyte. Is that 24 kilobytes of flash and 3 kilobytes of RAM? Did I read that right? I think I read that right. Not a lot of flash and RAM.
No.
Well, again, it was made for a vape, not for a web server. So,
right,
there's that. They're pretty awesome, though.
I mean, it's still a computer.
I just like it because you can do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was there someone else did a web server? Oh, yeah, my story number 17 is along these lines, too. I love this. It's a from-scratch kernel built just to serve web pages.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's a custom TCP IP stack, an HTTP server, a RAM file system, and concurrent tasks. Comes with drivers for hardware for x86 PCs. It runs on QEMU on Linux, and is like basically a small bootloader and kernel, just sole purpose in life to serve web pages. Now, I don't know, like it does reduce your attack surface. Because if you think about some of the shenanigans that we as hackers can pull with things like Nginx and Apache, because of the filtering and like all the stuff in the config file, right? We've actually covered segments in years past about vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. So it does reduce your attack surface. However, like you still got to serve something in a web page. I guess if it's serving static web pages, that is more secure than a web application. It is a lot less code, but security problems can still arise, but you do reduce your attack surface. It's kind of neat.
You hook that up with Hugo. Hugo is a building static web pages framework, and hook it up to Tatix, and that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, because Tatix just needs access to the files to serve them up. And if you're using Hugo, it generates those files for you. So yeah, that would work.
Pretty cool.
A lot of neat projects like that. Also, along those lines, my story number 15, everything in a Linux terminal. I was like, if you're a Linux purist, why not just do everything in the terminal, including rendering GUI apps? And Hackaday has a great quote. It says, if, like us, you are more interested in how it works, there's a write-up explaining the nuances of the Wayland protocol. This article points out that Wayland doesn't actually care what you do with the graphical output. You could, for example, print out the graphics and give them to a league of crochet grandmas to individually tie together every single pixel into the Afghan of legend. We expect to see this tested at an upcoming hacker conference. Again, this is hacking at its finest. Like, Wayland doesn't care where it displays. You can render stuff anywhere. Why not just render everything in the terminal? And it looks horrible. If you go look at the screenshots, it is pretty horrific looking.
Wait, what was that? What was that last part?
It's as pretty as you would.
What was that last part about the do it at the next hacker conference with crochet or something?
Yeah, because the article points out that Wayland doesn't care what you do with the graphical output. In particular, you could print out the graphics and give them to a league of crochet grandmas to individually tie together every single pixel into the Afghan of legend.
It's kind of cool.
I mean, I know some folks that do some crochet and knitting, and that could... My wife is hollering me from the living room. What are you signing me up for?
We want you to crochet pixels for a website.
I mean,
term everything, and there's your browser inside of your terminal.
30 crochets per second.
Right?
Curses will never die. This is amazing. Of course,
I mean, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
But it's the journey of getting there that's the fun part.
Yeah. I mean, trying to read that screen is like, boy, what have I been doing?
No, I know, exactly.
But it's still cool.
It's coffee. It's coffee.
Sam, you picked up a story on the HybridPetya malware. We've been talking about this at work.
Yeah, well, I figured you'd be the expert on it.
I mean, essentially, what we have here is your classic secure boot fiasco, right? And I want to pick on secure boot a little bit, but I'll also defend it a little bit because it's usually us as humans that screws it up, right? Secure boot's a great thing, like providing a root of trust for all software involved in booting up your computer. Amazing concept. I mean, it was implemented to overcome issues that we had before where there was no root of trust and no validation of software that booted your system with BIOS. So we created UEFI and secure boot. However, what happens is any link in the chain can become the weakest link at any moment. And the vulnerability here is a classic example of that. It's a bootloader that has a vulnerability that has been signed to work with secure boot. So if you haven't updated all of the revocation lists for secure boot on your system, it means attackers can load something that's vulnerable, exploit it, and then take control of secure boot. And that's essentially what's happening here. Some of the headlines are like jumping a little ahead here because this still lives in your EFI partition. It's not necessarily taking control of the UEFI process, right? Like this is after exit boot services. So this is in your bootloader. So this is what we'd call a bootkit. It lives in your EFI partition. And so they're like, well, if you rebuild your system, then this malware can still persist. And I'm like, yeah, but you just need to rebuild your EFI partition when you rebuild your system, and then you can get rid of it. If it were to live in UEFI, then you'd have a whole different problem because then it would be living on the spy flash in UEFI. Much harder to recover. So there's an important distinction that I think people tend to gloss over because there's two types of bootkits, if you will, because they end up with the same name. So there's bootkits that live after exit boot services. An exit boot services hands off from UEFI to your bootloader. So your bootloaders have to be signed with secure boot, but there's so many different bootloaders with so many different vulnerabilities. In fact, Binary ran an article talking about signed UEFI shells. I'm with you. There's an unknown number of UEFI shells that are signed, which, if they contain the memory map command, it is well documented, see my coworkers Jesse and Mickey's DEF CON presentation from 2 or 3 years ago called One Bootloader to Rule Them All. If you go to Mickey's GitHub, he basically gives you instructions on how in a UEFI shell to use the memory map command to swap out some memory addresses that effectively disable secure boot. But to the user, secure boot is still enabled. So that's what HybridPetya is basically doing, right? It's vulnerable bootloaders, which has been a problem since go back now 4 or 5 years to boot hole, which was holes in Grub that allowed attackers to bypass secure boot. So oftentimes one of the weakest links in secure boot is people sign bootloaders that contain vulnerabilities and or can be abused to bypass secure boot because you get the memory map command. So I'm kind of like on a mission now to go, how many signed UEFI shells are out there? And how do we determine if they have the memory map command built in? I'm like, even a disassembly of that should be able to say, oh, this is a UEFI shell. It's signed, because you can glean that using command line utilities. And if I do the disassembly, it contains the memory map command. And that combination of things means your secure boot is basically useless on your system.
So I just wonder how many of us are currently using secure boot. Do all Windows 11 systems have it? Do the modern Macs have it?
Well, Mac is a different platform. They do have secure boot, and it's proprietary to them. It is in their M series hardware.
Right.
There is an ARM platform, and it does use secure boot, but it is not UEFI secure boot from what I understand. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure their secure boot is proprietary to them. But since Apple owns all the hardware, firmware, and software, they can be in control of the entire root of trust, right? Yeah. They don't have to worry about some third party that wants to sign bootloader. Apple's like, no. No. Apple controls everything there. When you get into the, Intel, AMD, Microsoft ecosystem, it's a much more open ecosystem. And lots of things happen in the supply chain where you have to allow people to create multiple roots of trust, right? And that's where we get into trouble where people have signed things that are vulnerable.
What about phones?
Phones have also a secure boot, which is
I know
different.
iOS does. What about Android? I don't really know what Android has.
It varies per platform. So when we talk about unlocking your phone, sometimes you can disable the basically secure boot on your phone to unlock it, right? You unlock your bootloader is what they do. That's basically circumventing the secure boot process on your phone. And some phones you can unlock and some you can't, right? Some just made it so hard that you can't unlock them. Some you can contact the manufacturer of the phone and they can unlock it for you. Sometimes it's a carrier lock and the carrier can unlock it for you. But again, some phones you just I think it's the Pixel 6. I couldn't, maybe it is now, but when I looked at it, you couldn't unlock it. But back to Windows, it depends on how the OEM ships the device. Most OEMs ship a device with Windows 11 on it that has secure boot enabled by default with a root of trust that they've put on there. Certificates from them, right?
Yeah.
But then the question is how many people are running secure boot? How many are not? I have some old stats from data that we pulled for a previous ShmooCon presentation I did. And not everyone has secure boot enabled. Shocker.
So how many people do you suppose are infected with bootkits now? Is it a realistic concern for most people?
Well, it's an interesting question, Sam, because I think I had this with the VMScape story as well. How do we know if it's being exploited in the wild if we're not looking? How do you know if you have a bootkit if you're not analyzing all the files on your EFI partition, for example, and seeing if there's malware there? I think EDRs in general do a pretty poor job of identifying issues with secure boot and bootkits because it sometimes it's not necessarily traditional malware. It's really the entry point, not the malware itself. And EDR is focused on, however they got code execution is whatever. But hey, they got malware on the system and we can detect that, right? Or behaviors of malware, not necessarily the conditions that exist that would allow someone to exploit a bootloader to do a bootkit.
So it's hard to assess the actual risk.
Yeah, because like we go back to signed shells, this is the problem. It could be signed for a particular root of trust for one manufacturer, right? And so, yes, it's a problem, but it only works with XYZ manufacturer because this is only signed by. Right. So, yes, I found a vulnerability in a signed shell, but the signing is only done by XYZ manufacturer. Therefore, that limits the scope.
Yeah.
I think the case with was it the Howard bootloader, the CVE they mentioned in the HybridPetya article. You linked to the one in the register. It was ESET that posted. So this 2024 7344, that's a good one, but that's actually because Microsoft signed the HowYar EFI application reloader. And so that particular bootloader has vulnerabilities in it, but it was signed by a Microsoft. Microsoft has, I believe, since released updated certificates that invalidate this one. They have, because I saw it on some of my systems, actually. They have released an update. Yeah, so the Howard UEFI application reloader 32 and 64-bit is vulnerable to execution of unsigned software in a hard-coded path. So it's not even necessarily like a software vulnerability. It's just a lot of times it's the loader can load other stuff, and since the loader is signed, I can run other things. That was similar to boothole with Grub, right? In the configuration file, you can load stuff. Actually, that was a vulnerability. The other thing was memory corruption based on reading stuff from a config file.
Interesting.
So it's fun stuff. The HybridPetya is because they found code similarities to Petya and not Petya malware strains. So the concerning thing for me is this is in the context of ransomware, right? Because Petya and not Petya were different strains of ransomware. And what they were doing with this malware was they were encrypting the MFT. So the MFT is like it's like your allocation table, right? It's like a table of where stuff is stored. So if I encrypt the table that holds the mapping of where stuff is stored, you can't get to the stuff. Like it doesn't matter if I encrypt the drive or not. I've encrypted the mapping, your file system mapping.
You
but
could.
Then I think they also did it.
Yeah, you could in principle recover the file contents, but not the file names and structure. So
correct.
Yeah.
But then I think they also encrypted the files themselves. Right. I think they were doing both.
Did they? Oh, they encrypted it. Yeah. Okay. They steal it and then encrypt it.
Well,
which makes sense.
And so also interesting to point out, they found this on VirusTotal.
Right. Well, they said this is
so they didn't find this they didn't find this in a customer, an ESET customer environment that had been infected with this. They were like many of us in security research. We scour VirusTotal looking for various artifacts, and what they did was they found like, hey, there's a sample on VirusTotal and it contains a bootkit in it. Well, that's kind of interesting. So someone, I believe, from the IP address that uploaded this traced back to Poland. So I don't know who uploaded this to VirusTotal, but that's the malware sample that ESET discovered HybridPetya.
Yeah, well, the article I read said that this is probably just an academic proof of concept. It's not a real attack yet.
It could be. I mean, we don't know specifically. Not to say that we won't see that. And I mean, there's other malware we have seen in the wild that does all kinds of bootkit stuff. I mean, there's at least half a dozen or more popular examples. But you compare and contrast that to all of the other malware samples. There's millions of malware samples that you got to be concerned about. But ones that are specific to bootkits and UEFI, are probably like a dozen or so or whatever. But the dangerous part is they're much more impactful. They're getting into the system before the operating system, which is it should garner some attention. It also kind of speaks to a trend of attackers pushing down into this region.
Hey, well, you think of these hardware-based attacks as only useful for targeted attacks, not really a spreading worm, because you're only going to hit certain devices.
It could be, but I think what's happening is we're seeing it as more widespread.
Yeah.
So as you see those groups using it for targeted attacks, that malware gets out there, people are like, oh, that's interesting, and then it evolves, and then it ends up in everyday malware.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw, like, JMagic was a 1999 FRAC article, and we recently saw that being deployed on Juniper devices as part of a campaign. So techniques never really go away. They just get reused.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. There's a full MCP support. Oh, dear. I'm just going through some of the stories and going, oh, crap. I
wanted to talk about the VMware one too, or VMScape one. Which breaks guest host isolation AMD CPU. So they note that a threat actor could deploy such an attack against a cloud provider simply by renting a virtual machine to leak secrets from the hypervisor or other VMs.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about speculative execution in the past in terms of whether we see it in the wild. Has it already happened? Like, how would we know?
If a tree falls in the forest and it doesn't make a sound and nobody's around to hear it, right?
I mean, cloud providers, would they even tell us? But the question is, do cloud providers monitor for this condition? How would they monitor for this condition? I mean, think about the major cloud providers and how much they have to monitor and protect. Would they detect someone who spun up a VM and started doing speculative execution attacks to leak secrets from something else? Do they detect that? If they do, would they tell us how they did it? Probably not. But if there was an attack, do they have to disclose it? In other words, is this happening and we just don't have visibility into it? Or do we have some visibility and no one's talking? I'm trying to prompt the security engineering teams that work at Google, Amazon, Microsoft. Like, are you going to come out and say that you're going to detect this or prevent it in some way? Or, like, are you observing it or not? And if you are observing it, are you telling us about it?
Well, they'd have to tell the affected customers, right, from breach disclosure law. But it wouldn't necessarily hit the press.
Interesting. It might not, right?
Probably wouldn't, unless it affected like all your machines. I know years ago when IPv6 was new, I used an IPv6 scan to see how many other hosts there were on the same layer 2 network at a cloud provider, and the answer was 217. So that's how many possible targets there would be. And that would be a relatively small group of affected customers, and it might never leak to the press.
Right. So it's similar to me. The speculative execution and jumping isolation in cloud environments is similar to UEFI and bootkits. I don't think we have the greatest visibility into these areas to say
certainly
definitively
not.
whether or not attacks are happening in the wild.
Yeah,
and
but
certainly the attackers aren't going to talk about it.
Well, but realistically, if they're leaking out secrets that they'd steal from the other VMs, you could just buy the secrets or find big dumps of them stolen other ways. This is a really expensive, difficult way to find a secret. Unless you had like a high-value military target or something, it's hard to see why you do it the hard way.
Unless there's people out there using this to steal secrets, and when we do the forensics and incident response, we're like, what you're saying, Sam, they're like, oh, they probably just guessed or got this secret from somewhere else. We don't know where they got the secret from.
Yeah.
But the secret is they're getting the secrets through breaking isolation. We don't know.
Right. And I think Sam's right. This would be for a very targeted use case. It would for that, and for that it depends. What are your resources behind you? Who are you? If you got the wherewithal to go for this and the time.
Well, it could also be like a spray and pray attack. So I upload a VM, right? I don't know whose secrets I'm going to steal, but I'm going to steal something, and let's see what I get. Right? It's like literally like fishing with an F. I just cast a line out there and see what I get.
Well, this is why the old military rule is right. You should have an air gap. You shouldn't have low security systems on the same network as high security systems.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes back to when, we first had the concept of VLANs, and we as security people were like, this is not a security control. Don't treat it as such because it all lives in software. Guest and host isolation, right? Same concept. It all happens in software. Same thing with containers. I preach it all the time.
Oh,
containers
even more
are
so.
not. Oh my God, they are not a security boundary.
They're sharing
at
the
all.
files with the host. I mean, yeah,
They're
containers
still
are faster and cheaper, but less isolated.
I haven't tested it in some time, but most default installations of Docker on Linux allow for local privilege escalation. Like you can just download a container from a GitHub and it'll pop you into a root shell.
So I'm remembering back a long time ago when they were first documenting router and firewall configuration, and one of the examples they use, and this might set Josh's hair on fire, is use the firewall to separate unclassified and classified networks. And I'm like,
no.
It'd be a small fire.
Said,
Josh doesn't have a lot of
That's
Josh
just
doesn't have a lot of hair to set on fire.
That's not an air gap. That is a software gap. And that is not an acceptable answer. I mean, it depends on the networks you're separating. If you're separating networks that are just for convenience or for minor security, that's fine. But if you're talking about like classified network versus unclass, oh hell no!
Well, I deliberately picked that example to get a rise out of you because there's trusted and untrusted, but that's not the right tool for that. But I think that's where what we've been talking about the last couple minutes is the right tool for the right isolation. Yep. It's not one size fits all as much as you want it to be.
Silver bullets are great. They're very rare though. So
they're rare.
It's like, no, it's not one size fits all. You have to do things the right way for the right situation for the right reason. I swear.
Silver bullets work on werewolves, not vampires.
Actually, silver bullets don't. They lack the specific gravity to actually go through the air properly. So you this has been tried. Yes, I'm a whack job.
It's awesome. I love it.
So you use depleted uranium, right?
What depleted uranium will work very well, and you can actually electroplate them with silver, and then presumably that would work on a werewolf. But a full cast silver bullet does not have the weight to actually engage the rifling and properly stabilize. So
was this what was that TV show? Mythbusters. This is a it sounds like this could be a Mythbusters episode.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you have to have something that's silver imbued or silver plated, but you can't do solid silver.
Right. Well, the bigger question is, where do they get the werewolf from to test on?
I've got a non-cyber book that I think Josh would dig. Maybe the rest of you would too. It's called Churchill's Ministry of Gentlemanly Warfare. It's about the sabotage stuff he did during World War II. This book talks about not only what they were doing, but the weapons they were creating that were very, very cool. And one of his main guys, his specialty was doing the math until he got it figured out. Yeah. Anyway, it's not a fast read, but it's really cool.
So I'm going to take a
complete non sequitur from the show, but
no. I'm going to give you another one.
That kind of relates.
One of my family's friends, we knew their entire family. The dad Herb was in World War II, was an engineer and designer, and they were doing this kind of thing, like coming up with weird uses for all types of radio, radar, wireless. Mm-hmm. They came up with this wireless gun that they would shoot and things would heat up. For example, back then, the undergarments of the ladies working in the office, they'd invented a microwave gun.
Remember that.
And they'd invented literally a microwave gun, and they were using it all over for funsies. And then they realized they could do interesting things with it if they scaled it up. It never went into production. This was too late in the war to go into production. But they built it to scale it up, to heat up a tank to where you could cook the people inside.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, this kind of thing.
Oh. How are you going to follow that, Paul?
Well, I guess you could try and heat up a safe in the same way to try and break into it.
Where was that one? That
which
was
is like my story number 5, which this is just, I wish Deviant, I read this story this morning. But this is part of a longer journey because the researchers tried to present, and I think we covered this. I think they tried to present last year at DEF CON, and they got a cease and desist from the safe companies. And then the EFF did the pro bono work for them. And after a whole bunch of time and some type of litigation, they were able to present their findings at DEF CON this year. And I'm not sure how I missed this talk.
This was the subject of Deviant's talk at the last ShmooCon, was some of these people.
So did he talk? So I don't remember all the details from Deviant's talk at ShmooCon in January of this year. I wish I had called Deviant and been like, dude, come on the show list. But I just read it like an hour before the show. Otherwise, I would have engaged Deviant to be like, dude, you got to come on and talk about this, right? Let's call him right now. So hi, Deviant. This is like so many aspects of the story. Like I have a lot of digital safes at home. And my goal is, and I get, Deviant talks about this too, right? Like, what's your goal? Who are you trying to keep out? Like, what is the goal of your safe? So like at home, I don't need anything like super secure. I mean, I probably could benefit from some better safes, but then you get into logistics. If you watch Deviant's talk, right? Safes are big and heavy and take up a lot of space and all that stuff. You have logistic problems. But so I buy the lower end, and I like the digital locks for convenience, right? And I understand I'm sacrificing some security by having these digital locks. And these digital gun safes, I forget the model, but they're very popular, and you just push the buttons on the top. And then what happens is I just leave stuff in the safe, like a firearm, for example. And then it like a year will go by, and I'm like, crap, I haven't opened that up in a year. And then the battery dies. And then I can't find the backup key to open it. So your options are either I break out my tubular lock pick, which I got to make sure I have the one with the right amount of pins.
7 or 8.
Right. It's 7 or 8. Right. I think I have one that does both. And so you can go down that route. But I'm not very good at the tubular lock picking. I haven't practiced it enough to be really good at it.
It sounds like you're about to get some practice, though.
Yeah, but no. So what I did was I Googled it, right? And I'm like, how do I break into this safe? And there's a lot of people don't like it when you search for that. Like, don't ask your LLM how to break into the safe. It's going to give you kinds of shit. But if you search hard enough, you eventually find a video, and all you have to do is lift up the plastic on the top of it. So the buttons are like a rubber that goes over the actual buttons underneath. If you lift up the rubber, you can slide. They talk about all different tools. I actually found a tensioner works best, and you slide the tensioner in, and then you just move the tensioner over to one side, and the thing just pops open. And it took me like literally 90 seconds. It probably could do it faster with more practice to pop open this safe. And so now, and then I bought a newer safe that has all the fancy digital stuff on it. And then I saw this talk, and I was like, oh, so there's like it's a supply chain issue, right? Lots of people make different safes for the, the cheaper ones, basically for home, where, like I'd want to keep, maybe a firearm, or which, I mean, should be in a higher security safe, arguably. Keep your valuables in there or whatnot. Keep your kids and cleaning people from messing with your stuff, right? But the supply chain issue is the makers of the actual mechanism is where the vulnerability lives. Right. And there's multiple vulnerabilities. There's backdoors that allow locksmiths to call the company and get codes. But then they also have an attack that uses a small Raspberry Pi that plugs into the debug port that allows them to bypass the security as well.
Nope.
And
that's where it's nice if you have keypad plus a key, right? Yeah. You can't just bypass it with the code. But my gun safe, it's just a keypad. My valuable safe is a key plus a keypad. And I have a different problem from you, Paul. For whatever reason, there's something in there, and if I leave the batteries in it, they run down. So I just slide the battery door out, and actually I'm thinking maybe if I had anything with a lock I'm hardly ever opening, I'll just do that so the batteries aren't
So
dead?
the safe that I bought, Lee, to combat that problem, because it's a common issue, and I forget which safe I bought exactly, but this safe has an external battery port connector to it.
Oh,
So if your batteries die, they give you a little battery compartment with a wire on it, and then you just plug that in, and it'll provide power to the keypad if your batteries die. So you can use the digital. This one has a fingerprint reader and a keypad on it.
Oh, I just remembered the other reason I went to sliding it out is when my battery died. I did open it so infrequently. They weren't just dead; they had corroded. You know, when the acid goes all over, which is a freaking mess.
Yep.
So not wanting to deal with that. But you're right. Having that external port is a really nice peace of mind.
It was a nice feature. Yeah.
And I hope it comes with the gizmo, or at least you remember to buy it when you're buying the safe.
And then it's just a matter of remembering where you put said little wire. Like you tape it.
You won't lose it if you keep it in the safe.
Yeah. Keep it in the safe, right? Or tape it to the back.
Not
There's
that
a
safe.
logical problem there. You realize that, Lee.
No, I'm going to keep it in my gun safe. Yeah, that's
right. Keep it in the other safe.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this model. So they show this model. So this is
They said it was a custom-built safe.
SecuRAM Pro Logic. Looks like it's only digital.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's only digital. Yeah.
You know,
so they
got
did a nice. I mean, the article is pretty. Well, it's not going to let me read it now. I got to start my free trial. But
no, it's really
you
nice.
should go read the article.
You know, I got a keypad like that for a door in the hacking lab, and I installed it, and I gave the students a challenge to get in without me telling them the code, and they got in immediately because I didn't know this. When you program in a code, it does not invalidate the default code of 0000.
No.
Correct.
No.
So
that was my problem
rude.
with my previous safe that one of my sons got in. I did exactly that.
Yeah.
Yep. You add new codes, but you don't change. You got to change the default. And you can. There was something about these SecuRAM safes that you can do the same thing. You can change the master code, but there's also an algorithm with these safes. And you go into the menu, and it gives you numbers, and then you give those numbers to the support of the safe manufacturer, and they apply some algorithm that then gives you a code that it gives you access to the safe. And what the researchers found, James Rowley and Mark Omo are the two researchers. What they did was they reverse engineered the firmware, figured out what the algorithm was, and then I believe they programmed their Raspberry Pi to pull the codes off of it. And then they had have a Python application that you plug those numbers in, it does the algorithm they reverse engineered, and then gives you the new code that unlocks the safe.
And there's also apparently like a place you can poke in with a wire to hit a hidden switch that will reveal the code. So,
right.
Yeah, but you have to use their chip to do that. It's there's a couple of different ways to do it.
But there's also some kind of but that's like a backdoor to all the safes. Basically, this is the Clipper chip, but for safes. It means that anyone can get into. So they also have law enforcement. They have records of law enforcement gaining access to safes because they contact the manufacturer. Now, the manufacturer says they have to have a court-approved warrant before they'll give law enforcement access to the safe. But that's kind of an issue as well.
But to be fair, I think the manufacturer's defense made some sense. They said, you could just drill out the lock. So it's not like you can't get in. There are known ways to get in.
But that's a lot of work.
And it leaves signs. That's the other point.
And leaves signs that you were in.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
so I guess for law enforcement, it's just a time-saving measure.
Right. Well, and this is
time and cost, right? Because they'd have to hire someone or have someone on staff that knows how to break into safes.
Yeah, exactly. And on the other end of the spectrum, where I used to work, they had the GSA approved safes, and there was no back door. You had to drill out the lock if you've lost the access.
Right.
I mean,
Deviant talked about the ones that are approved for U.S. military and government usage, and there's different levels, and talk is amazing.
And that was the subject of those folks that found a vulnerability in the latest model of those safes, and they got sued into oblivion for that. So,
and that was the folks that found ways.
Yep.
Yeah, but so it wasn't the digital ones. You're talking about just regular safe cracking.
Yes.
They found vulnerabilities in the mechanism.
Yes.
Deviant talked about that.
And specifically, if you want some more background and a fantastic read, the book that Deviant talked about in his talk is called Safecracker by Dave McOmie. It's available as an audiobook. It's a 6-hour and 22-minute listen, and it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Talks about all the fun safes that he worked on and some really antique ones, and one of the stories is about whether or not he was successful breaking into Prince's vault after he passed away.
Interesting. Okay, what was the answer to that one?
I'm not going to tell you. You got to go read the book.
Yeah, we can read the book. I want to read the book now.
Hey,
100%. I follow a locksmith. I follow a locksmith on Instagram that posts videos of him getting into safes. A lot of times he's just drilling them out.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
To get into them. Sometimes, depending on the safe, he'll drill it out just to get a camera in there, just to see what's inside. And then if there's nothing of value in there, he tells the customer, like, it's not what, like, this is what's inside. You can pay me to break it open completely, but there's nothing in here really. Like, you just close it up, leave it in the floor, and move on with life.
Yeah.
That was one of the recent ones I watched.
Oh, hey, Deviant would like to join if we want to.
I'd love to have Deviant on talk about this. We've got 28 minutes. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, let's send him the link. So I was also thinking, you run into those YouTubes or whatever of people breaking open a safe, and they generally don't go after the lock. They go after the rest of the ecosystem to break it open.
We all need to rub our lock picks together and summon Deviant.
All right, hang on.
Rub our lockpicks together and have him call on Bill's prison phone.
Right. Oh, that's bad. Okay, let me get the link.
Standing by.
After I said what I said about my batteries, I'm wondering if I removed the batteries. If I unplugged the battery door last time I opened the safe, or if they're dead now.
I know what you're doing when you get done with this podcast.
Problem, right?
I gotta look up and see what safe I bought the safe largely based on more usability than security, which probably means it's easily bypassed. But
yeah.
Also, kind of it depends on what you're trying to protect. Like, in some ways, you kind of want some bypasses just in case stuff happens. You want to be able to get to your stuff. But,
yep. So, and Paul, in your case, I'm assuming they're relatively small, intended to be sort of by the nightstand type of thing in case you need it, as opposed to something a little bit larger, like for valuables that should be bolted down to the floor from the inside.
Yes.
Okay, he's got the link. Let's see if he hops on. He said he'd hop on right away. He said he's not in his usual home office. He's in an Airbnb in Texas.
Wow.
So audio and video will not be ideal, but he's happy to join.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And now the wait, right?
And now the wait. Yeah, I wish I could. I was able to read this article on my other computer. Was I signed into? Now I got to do the. Like, I want to read this article, but I can't on the show.
You got to put it on archive.is.
What is it? Is it archive.is?
Yep.
Archive.is. Yeah, it's the best.
Is that the book, Larry?
Yeah. Mine has a different cover, but
Wait, Dave, is that Pyro's brother or something?
Dude, you know Pyro?
I do.
Yes, I'm on the mailing list. Okay. All right, so Tyson, Steven will be joining us momentarily, hopefully.
Yep. Awesome. Now we just got to fill that awkward silence, right?
Yeah. So the one thing that I think would be funny as hell is if we start talking about the mainframe article and he jumps in, because the mainframe article also took me for a loop. The fact that mainframes are becoming more and more common, and people are using them for AI workloads.
But they aren't running the AI on COBOL yet, which is the next step.
Have they got it ported to Ada?
if they run AI on COBOL, it's like this is just it's fucked.
It would run really fast.
Oh no, it wouldn't. Mainframes are good for parallel processing, and that's why they're using GPUs. Which I get it, but still, it just doesn't work in my head, man. I'm sorry. Okay.
And so they built their own safes with the ProLogic controllers, and they painted them pink, which I thought was a nice touch. Like they're very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like that's the Python app that they're using. So this is the 1 minute video. So they go in, they recover the system. They enter, it looks like a default code.
It is.
It gives them 99999 those numbers, right? And then they plug those numbers into their Python app, right?
Oh, this is just like the BIOS code that used to pop up.
Well, that's the thing. They took, according to the article, it's the code that it pops out. There's a secret encryption, like a salt, basically.
Yeah.
And there's a magic algorithm, but it was all in the chip. Yeah. So they were able to pull the code, all the numbers that they needed out of the chip, and go and just instantiate it in Python.
You know, there's a way to do that. That could have been public key encryption with the private key on the server somewhere, and they never would have been able to get in. Like so many things, this is just sloppy use of cryptography.
Well, to do that, however, you would have needed to make the safe enabled. Okay, he says he's in.
No, the safe could have a public key built into it, but the only way to decrypt it would be to go to their server with the private key.
There he is.
Hey, it's Deviant. Look at that. Deviant, I said we just need to rub our lockpicks together and summon Deviant. You appeared. It's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you all?
Hey, we're doing great, man. We were talking not as intelligently as you can talk about the latest research about safe cracking that came from Omo and Rowley, who presented at DEF CON. So I want to get your take, because I watched your presentation at ShmooCon, and it was just absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And I don't remember all the details, but this is the world that you live in. So
yeah, man. The ShmooCon one was a little tight on time. The longer version is at Kakalekicon, which I threw that on my channel. Links in the show notes and all that. Click and subscribe. At least my Blue Apron. No, like so. Yeah, I'm a shit YouTuber, but So those cats at DEF CON really knocked it out of the park. I knew them for a while. Like I'd been in touch with them for almost a year. Actually, they were talking to me when they initially started this research, and they were encountering some legal headaches and some concern.
Yeah, they got a cease and desist. The EFF got involved, right? So this has been going on for a while.
Yeah. So I was really enthusiastic to find, to see them find a way to bring it to light, because I think it's really important to talk about. And they're doing just classic stuff, like analyzing a firmware that a manufacturer was like, well, no one would ever look under the hood of this thing. Yeah, and to some degree, the market for people who are mostly purchasing safes or reselling safes aren't the kind of people who are going to look under the hood and tinker with it. Just like I wouldn't expect professional chefs to be dumping the firmware out of their modern cuisine cookers or something. It's just not a market segment that you think is really going to be like, yeah, it's working. I want to leave it working. I don't want to mess with it. But all it takes is a few dedicated folk to be like, scratch the surface and be like, oh, wow. So they didn't protect the ROM. They didn't make it, non-readable. Like, holy shit, we can just do anything we want in here.
And so the first backdoor they showed, it looks like they reset the safe and they get some numbers. And based on those numbers, they reverse engineered the algorithm that allows them to create new codes to break in the safe.
Was that the one they call Code Snatch, or is that the? They had cool names for all of them, but you're talking about, I believe, on the safe, there's a manufacturer reset function, and if you call up, or usually a safe technician would be the one contracted to call up SecuRAM. I've also heard it pronounced Secure RAM. Don't know which is which. Yeah. But we're going to say because everyone in the industry used to call them SuckURAM for a while. But that was safe guys don't like anybody new, and they're a newer player in the game. But SecuRAM would.
So this is reset heist.
Reset heist, yes. So basically, it's not unlike software products that used to have like a serial registration, and somebody would, basically it would do something like, what's the serial number of your hard drive or something, and it would give you a challenge. It would use some crappy random, and then you would send that challenge into the manufacturer to register your software. They would give you a code, and all it was doing was running it through some weird algorithm that locally on the software with no internet connection necessary, it would be like, yeah, you clearly have talked to the manufacturer, you're registered. And what everyone would do would just, somebody would reverse it and then push it out on cracks.am or serials.ws. Hi, I'm old. And someone would make a cracker for it. They would be like, here's the algorithm. Like, you multiply it by 6 and divide by 25. So that's what these cats have done. They found in the firmware, they found the checking algorithm that verifies what the challenge and response would be. I don't think they've ever really determined how the lock makes up the challenge. It's possibly something to do with the serial number of the lock. Probably, if I had to guess, because the lock doesn't have a real-time clock, there's probably like, how many entry events have you logged? Something that cheaply makes a random string. And what matters is that if you have that string, you send it to SecuRAM. SecuRAM will send you back the response.
It'd have to be the serial number, because the manufacturer doesn't have accessibility to find out how many entry events or whatever.
Right. But what they did is they found the algorithm generates the response to that challenge. So they can act like a technician who is authorized to speak to SecuRAM and reset the lock, which the user would know in theory. If a malicious actor did this, the user would in theory know what happened, because they try to use their safe the next day and they say, oh, it doesn't work. Now, would the user really know, or would the user say, oh, my safe died? And they would call a technician and be like, was it working the last time you used it? What did you do wrong? I don't know what I did wrong. It was working, then it was. That's every safe call out we have. Like, it was working fine for the last 5 years. And as Bobak would say, yeah, everything works until it doesn't. Like, you might as well walk in your house and be like, that light bulb, look at this fucking thing. For the last 9 years, I switched my switch on, the light bulb came on. Now it didn't today. Everything works until it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so it is with respect to so this is essentially a backdoor, right?
It depends on our definition, but yes, it is a feature of the lock that allows the manufacturer or those with special knowledge from the manufacturer to open the safe. Now, we could say, do backdoors have to work clandestinely, or do they have to work in any way that is obvious? Like, doesn't matter. But depending on your definition, this is a variety of backdoor, I would say, in a way that does not exist for a mechanical safe dial. There is no call the manufacturer and reset my mechanical safe dial because I forgot the combination.
Yeah.
No. Right. But so in this case, they said law enforcement would get a warrant and contact the manufacturer. So that does happen always with a warrant, you think? Or
No. Also quoted in the Wired piece, I believe, and also getting some very deserved press, was Senator Wyden's office.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
Wyden's office put out a statement, which again, like, I like being the person who gets a phone call sometimes. It's like, hey, we're about to say this. Does this look correct? I'm like, yeah, I'll look down that with you. And then when something comes out in the press, you're like, good job, guys. You did it.
Nice.
So before his office put out statements, many manufacturers did not have an official policy of how to engage with law enforcement. They was just kind of like vibes. Like, so example, Sargent and Greenleaf, another major manufacturer of safe locks. They also have an electronic line of safe locks. They also have manufacturer codes. They almost immediately put out a statement saying, well, we would never, ever, we require a warrant. That policy, I happen to know for a fact, did not exist inside of S&G prior to Wyden's office being public. That ink was still drying on that one. We're like, we have a policy. Look at that. Warrants necessary. Yeah. And I believe, I can't speak as directly to SecuRAM, I believe they were in the same boat where it was just kind of vibes, where they'd like a warrant. If you had a warrant, they'd honor it. If you didn't have a warrant, maybe they would honor it, which I don't like that at all. I mean, you know how trivial it is to get a warrant for anything in this country? We do not have underzealous courts and law enforcement. So, like, just get the freaking warrant. Come on, man.
But if let's just say law enforcement has a warrant and they're up against one of these safes and they don't contact the manufacturer, there's no lock to drill out here. Like, how would they go about getting into it anyway?
There's a number of attacks. The most common one they would probably try if their team is equipped. There are a couple of what are called differential power analysis kits. The little black box is very well known, within the trades. It's very well known from Lockmasters. Taylor Tools makes the Phoenix, which is almost the same type of thing. I don't have a Phoenix. My friend Dan is who actually made the little black box, though, so he sold that to Lockmasters. And the idea is all of these safe locks, pretty much nowadays, universally, if the battery dies, that's bad. So the battery's on the outside of the safe, so you can swap it out. Right. Which means that the power source for all these locks is outside of the safe container, which means you could take the battery out and put your own power source in. And if you control the power, you can, for those who don't know how differential power analysis works, you can monitor the power being drawn by any electronic widget. And in a nutshell, and all the people who are way smarter than me will tell me how I'm very wrong about this, and please do that. It boosts Paul's engagement. But essentially, if you are waking up, an embedded electronic circuitry, and it is reading something out of memory, like out of NAND, it costs more volts to read a 1 than a 0 out of memory. Like, we're talking picovolts, right? But consumer electronics, you can get components nowadays that once were the realm of researchers at universities and government. They're cheap enough that you can build off-the-shelf parts to monitor. You can use a logic analyzer, or you can make a self-contained box, and it will like watch the lock wake up. It'll see the clock timing. It'll be like, oh, it's reading the code out of memory. Once you know the boot up sequence of the lock, you're like, oh, there it is. There's the going right by and the E squared speed bus. Like that's the code. So it's just getting, because the lock doesn't have persistent memory and RAM. Every time you wake the lock up, it reads codes out of memory. So it's ready to all right, this user is going to give me some input. I got to be ready for it. And it has to read those codes out of memory, including the user code and the master reset code. So that's what it's doing. These little black box or the Phoenix, they will just plug in, they will wake the lock up, they will get the code. And then depending on which version of the product you have, one of three things will happen. On the locksmith version, which is available to people in the trades, right? The safe technician version, it will wait for about 15 minutes. And it's funny, it shows like a baloney animation that's doing nothing. It's just like, looks like a pew-pew chart and a bar graph. Yeah. It just makes a locksmith sit there and wait, because there's no reason that a locksmith would need immediate entry. Like, the customer's there, you're not doing anything clandestine. The law enforcement version works immediately, but it does not give them the code. It uses the code to reset the lock. The government version gives them the code immediately. And they can just use the code, open it, close it. The customer would never know if they were doing some sneaky things.
Now, you could rewrite the boot sequence to not load the code directly. I mean, it just sounds
theory,
like they didn't think of this.
There's a number of things that electrical engineers can do to interfere with diff power analysis. You don't even really have to do it in software. I believe if you're pulling through, I don't know, like using some capacitors, using some, I don't actually know how this is working in the embedded level. But if you don't have external memory, if you have the NAND in the chip, there's a number of ways I understand that. And newer models of lock actively fight against this. Now, if you have a lock that is not susceptible to that, what you would do is, you're going to get some drills. So you're going to get some metal cutting is involved. But whether you're going straight for the bolt work, just in just a chop method to chop the safe open, like I can neutralize a safe that way, or slightly more elegant, it would be Lance's book, the Encyclopedia, which is the nickname. The actual book is, Defeating Electronic Safes. He's the guru of this. There's a way you can drill, and basically he has it's a gorgeous book. I'll send you screenshots if you want to see it later. Like every major brand of safe, Lance is like, here is the entire circuit board. Here is where every single transistor and cap and resistor, here's all the components. Like this transistor, this is the voltage, this is the drain, this is this. So he will tell you, like, if this is the safe, drill right here with an end mill, stop 2 millimeters above the board, don't scratch up the PCB, go in with your scope, go in with your probes, and you are hot wiring, you're spiking right on the board. Right. So you're just triggering a solenoid, you're just triggering a motor. That's a more elegant way of getting electronics.
Right. Yeah, because the code is just the first stopgap measure. Yeah. Once a successful code, there's physics and electronics that use a solenoid, like you said, to pop the safe open.
Physical attack is
shortcutting it and going right into that.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what do we do? What do we do at home? Like, I was just telling the everyone that I bought a new safe at home.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for more convenience rather than super high security. And it has a fingerprint reader. It has a keypad.
Mm-hmm.
It has a battery backup port, right? So if my batteries die, I can do that. But I'm assuming that this safe is pretty easily bypassed.
Very possibly. Yeah. If you have an external, like it's a little 9-volt pads that you can touch.
It's AA batteries in like a battery bank.
Interesting. Okay. I thought it might have been a Lagarde or a Cisco ASA, but essentially, yeah, I mean, everything's a balancing act. I know you and most of the stuff that anyone could ever find out about you probably won't involve the FBI kicking in your door. So for you, the convenience factor and the quick access might be worth it. For me, because hey, don't come shoot my dog, ATF. I'm not doing anything federally illegal either, but I might worry more about specific threat actors who would have access to these tools coming after my stuff. So I just prefer mechanical locks. I have done, in fact, when the big thing about Liberty Safe and all that came out in the news, a lot of people were up in arms. And I said, look, if you want a mechanical lock, they're all the same. Like the components are the same size. It's what's called a magic module footprint on the inside of the door. The safe casement is the same size. You can just swap out the electronic keypad and put a dial. You can swap out the electronic case, put a mechanical case, and you've got a mechanical safe lock. I was like, I'll just do it for you at cost if you live near me. So I did that for a few people. I filmed one of them and threw that online.
Sargent and Greenleaf. They're very nice. They're very solid. They're pretty much the standard.
They are. Absolutely. So for, $200, you can swap out your electronic lock for a mechanical lock if you want it. And everything's a trade-off. It's slightly slower to operate.
Right.
You have to know it's not as easy as dialing a phone, right? You have to know how to dial it. Sometimes other relatives, they forget the dialing sequence, and they do require maintenance. Once every year or so, you should be opening it up, make sure there's nothing going wrong in there, lubing the parts that need lube, not lubing the parts that don't. You don't want stuck flies and other things. But it's everything's a trade-off.
Right. That's really it's interesting. Because it's a risk evaluation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, also, I think cameras are part of it. I think we've had this conversation before. Like, I know that pretty much any safe with enough perseverance, someone could get in, but my backup is and put a camera there.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Even the best safes aren't rated for more than, half an hour, 1 hour. And no one at home is buying that safe. Those are safes you see in commercial environments, a jewelry store, a pawn shop, something with huge valuables. Your safes at home, if you're lucky, they've got maybe a 15-minute rating. So that's the kind of thing where the safe is delaying and frustrating the attacker, ideally to give you the opportunity to respond because you're seeing something, your alarm's going off, something like that.
Right. Now, they did say, back to the research, that these particular electronic locks are also used. Did they say Fort Knox? I believe they said Fort Knox. And the concerning thing for me was pharmaceuticals, right?
Yes, we should clarify.
I think they called it. Did they call out CVS?
So yes, they mentioned some of the like CVS, Walgreens, etc. We should clarify for the listeners, Fort Knox is a brand. We're not talking about actually where the gold bullion used to be.
The actual Fort Knox.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, Fort Knox makes good safes. Much in the same way. So if you have most people have safes at home, either for some valuables or for guns. If you have a safe that's got branding on it, like Browning or, some Winchester, it's not like these gun companies are making that safe. This is all, Chinese steel coming in and imported and getting a silk screen. And likewise, the safe manufacturers aren't making the locks most of the time on these safes. So it's all S&G, Lagarde, Cisco ASA, SecuRAM, et cetera. And there are certain major brands in the industry that are used for specifically, they're rated for drug storage. So most pharmacies are required in almost every state I'm aware of to lock up their controlled substances behind a safe that has been certified for that purpose.
Is it like TL30 for drugs?
Sorry?
Yeah, I think it's TL30 for drugs, isn't it?
Yes, and they are also in the industry. I believe I haven't serviced a bunch of pharmacies, but I believe in the industry, like best practices are considered. Well, these brands are like on the approved products list, and everyone's just been buying them forever. And yes, those safes do make use of mostly, almost exclusively, electronic locks, because there's also regulatory compliance for audit logs. You can't really get an audit trail with a mechanical dial.
Lock.
You need to know which user logged in at which time.
Right. And it's the same thing. The hospitals have them as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because they also have controlled substances. That was in a famous murder case or something like that. It was like a Netflix documentary.
Really?
Where the guy was he was a nurse and he was killing patients. And I think one of the ways they got him was the audit logs from the safes that held the controlled substances.
Damn. That's crazy.
But it's a supply chain issue. Mm-hmm. They're all going to source from the lock mechanism from a set of manufacturers.
Yeah, for the most, it's on the approved list. That's what you buy. Yeah.
Which is why the government, we do use electromechanical locks for our classified storage, but we don't use any of these commercial brands. Our locks are all going to either be the Kaba series, so the X series by Kaba Moss, or Sargent & Greenleaf makes a competing product that nobody uses, their 2740 line.
Oh dear. Was that their
could use those?
They tried to bring out?
Sorry.
But you also talked about mechanical locks, safe locks, having vulnerabilities that researchers disclosed, and they also got sued, right? Is that a separate from these researchers, right?
This is the subject of the Dave McComey book.
Dave McComey, who I'm glad you mentioned him, incredible person, lovely human. His book Safecracker, everyone should enjoy thoroughly, even if you're not in the trade. Excellent guy. Over the years, any manufacturer of a security product will get really antsy around any kind of disclosure. I'm not familiar with mechanical vendors suing people over like modern disclosures. I could be mistaken. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was any, because his book is multiple incredible stories.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, that's not happened to hackers. I know that.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly from the book, this was the one and that you described during your ShmooCon talk about having the sort of industry Safecracker newsletter that they basically had on the loading dock that they had to destroy because they got the cease and desist for some of this stuff. So maybe not sued, but certainly some legal action pursued against them.
Yes. So that was the former entity that is now Kaba Moss, was Moss Hamilton. That is the government safe lock, which is an electromechanical. That was the early days of the X series, the X07, the X08, which, fun fact, I magically have a copy of that article now. So like, how did that happen? Whoa, where'd that get into my inbox?
Huh. It's good to know people.
Yes, it is.
Steven, what are the differences? We talked about locksmiths being a registered locksmith versus just regular person. Like what is how are these people treated? What's the certification process like for a locksmith? I've always kind of wondered this because it seems like black arts, almost like magicians, or like they have their own kind of cult things. They don't share a lot of information.
It depends on where you live. Some states regulate locksmithing as a trade differently than others. In some areas, you have to be licensed or registered or bonded. Other areas, it's kind of the Wild West. In many jurisdictions now, much like with a lot of contractor work, there'll be one person who is the certified person who owns the shop, and then all of his workers are kind of working under that umbrella. It's how we have a lot of healthcare now, like telehealth medicine. They'll have one nurse practitioner in every state, and all these other people that are taking the calls. It's a weird end run around regulation. But yes, it's a state by state and sometimes city by city in very large cities. That's the only distinction. So there's no one particular body who is doing this accreditation. It is at the local level.
I gotcha. And so do you go to school to be a locksmith?
You can.
You can. Okay.
You can. Yep. Lockmasters in Kentucky, Taylor, MBA USA. These are the names in the industry. They're all in Nicholasville, Kentucky. There's other schools out there, right? But they are kind of the icons of the industry.
And is there an apprenticeship part of it, or?
Many shops will bring people. There used to be a much more official way that in the trades you would be brought on officially as an apprentice and then a journeyman and then blah, blah, blah. I think the concept of that has faded to some degree. But yes, most lock shops will still informally refer to their new hires as apprentices. And then eventually, if you strike out on your own, maybe you go out and make your own shop one day, or you inherit the shop from somebody when they retire. The trade needs people. They are hurting for talent. And if this is something that people think they enjoy, I would consider, like, those of us used to going to Black Hat, where a 5-day training or 4-day training is like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. You'd be shocked. You go look at Lockmasters, like, wow, Pro Lock, the locksmith training course, week long, it's $600. Holy crap! Wow. I might be wrong on that. It's an order of magnitude different. You can go get some training and then talk to the shops in your area, see if they need talent.
Wow, that's cool. It's kind of, I think a lot of the trades like that in the U.S. are hurting for people. HVAC, things like that.
Oh yeah, learn to weld. You want to learn? You want a good bit of money, no debt? Learn to weld.
Yep.
100%. Yeah, I know people whose kids are doing that actually. Who maybe
my son's doing welding, but he's also dabbling in other areas as well. But welding is certainly a path he's looking at.
Get him a good.
Now I kind of want to be a locksmith though, so he can rekey all my locks and all that stuff. Right?
Fun.
Yeah. And so will all locksmiths do like a safe? Like if I'm locked out of my own safe, can I call a locksmith? And that's pretty standard?
Not all. Some locksmiths, so the main pillars would be residential locksmithing, automotive locksmithing, and safe technician work. Some shops do all three, some shops do two, some shops just do one. I know some cats that are nothing but automotive, and they just have a mobile van. They do nothing but call outs, because locked out of your car happens more often than locked out of your house. And getting a new key for your house is usually simple. Like you go to Minute Key at Home Depot or something, but getting a new key for your car, you're like, oh, the dealer said $300. I could beat that. So yeah, some guys are just automotive. I do no automotive at all.
But so you said residential, automotive, and what, commercial?
Safe technician work. So yeah, you know what I would say, that's commercial or institutional, we might call it, locksmithing. It's similar to residential with a little more specificity in terms of some of the hardware is a little more expensive and has to be installed more efficiently and cleanly.
Fascinating stuff.
So, Devin, you said your Safe Talk, the longer version, was at KakalakiCon?
It was.
And that's on your YouTube channel?
It is.
Oh, yeah. I highly recommend everyone go watch that. That was great.
Thank you.
Great. It's awesome information.
Well, thank you. Thanks to Josh to ping me on my phone. I'm just at an Airbnb in Texas, so I'm sorry the room's really booming. Sorry about your audio.
No, it was great, dude. Thanks for coming on the show. It was good seeing you as always. Josh, thanks for reaching. I was like half joking. Like, I know Deviant's kind of busy. I don't know if he'll jump on like last minute. Like I just read this article right before the show. If I had been a little sooner, I would have contacted you myself. But I'm glad you were able to come on the show.
Hell yeah, man. Always good to see y'all.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. That will conclude this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Larry, take us out.
Over and out.